and welcome to episode 174 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, Brian shows off his new deluxe EV. It's so pretty, Colin Jost is conflicted.
Iran has declared a 2-day public holiday over an unprecedented heat wave risk. In solidarity, the Clean Energy Show is declaring next week a holiday for us and all of our listeners. Enjoy your week off next week, and if your boss has any questions, James's address is 2 and his phone number is 300.
And Brian's car is so fast, Colin Jost is conflicted.
The United States government has announced 4 to 8 gigawatts of new offshore wind areas in the Atlantic Ocean. After the announcement, I guess Joe Biden put on his sunglasses and peeled away in his Corvette. I mean, what else would he do?
All that and so much more on this edition of the Clean Energy Show.
So kind of a special show this week because you're off next week on an actual vacation.
I'm leaving. Well, count me on vacation now. Don't count this show as one of our best ones because...
I've been on vacation for the entire run of the podcast. So
that's true, you have.
I've been checked out the whole time.
Imagine if you were checked in. What a show we'd have. So I saw your new car. You dropped by and showed me and the family. And I was... Have we mentioned the color of the car yet? I don't think we have.
I don't think so, but it's a Tesla Model S, and it is ultra red.
That is a brand new color. The Tesla people tell you that you're the first in our province in Canada to get that color.
Yeah.
And I've seen pictures. You've sent me a picture. Does nothing. Does absolutely nothing. Mm-hmm. You have to see this in the sunlight for yourself. It is indescribable.
Yeah.
I'm not a car guy. I'm not a geek, but Christ, that's a beautiful car. I mean, it's a really good looking car. I know you're not a geek in a car either. You're not a gearhead, but you have to appreciate how beautiful that sucker is.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily have ever gone for red. I've never owned a red car before. It's just that this new ultra red just is really, really nice, and it's brand new, and I could order it and apparently get one of the first ones around here.
And this is a recording I made of looking at it for the first time.
All right, I am about to look at Brian's car for the first time. It's really red. I mean, it's a special red.
It's ultra red.
Holy crap, it looks nice. It's too good for Uplands. You better leave. Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's a head turner.
I raised your property values just by parking in front of your house.
In front of my house. Yes, that's all it took. Wow. I just felt like, you're naked because the whole world's staring at you because that thing does not blend in. It is a very, very, it's like in the way that like a Lamborghini or $1 million sports car would stand out. It just really grabs your attention. And it's a full-size, is it a full-size sedan? I think it's a full-size sedan with a lift back.
Call it that. Yeah.
The lift back was quite spacious. One thing that I will note before you go on is that I was impressed with the back's room space. And we went and compared it to my midsize SUV, the Acura MDX from 2003. And I think you had more. Like there was just a really good amount of space back there.
Yeah, well, you get that EV benefit, right? Like where you don't need the engine, you don't need the gas tank, so you can kind of push the seats a little further forward and a little farther back. Like the room is amazing. It's going to be an amazing road trip car. I'm very, very lucky to have it.
And then I have a recording of my family and I getting in. My son was taken by some of the features of the car, and they had a surprising steering wheel to show us, the yoke steering wheel. We'll get to that in a second. And in this recording, we're talking about the features of the car, and then we cut to a bit later when you floor it for the first time, unexpectedly. Now, you can't hear anything in the audio. I want to point that out because there is no noise, even in headphones on the original audio that's not cleaned up. There's no noise. It's just screaming. And it's not like we're drowning anything out. It's just that. And then later on, the second bunch of screams is when you were at 90 kilometers an hour, which is, I don't know what is that in?
Like 60 miles, 50 miles an hour.
Something like that. And then you tap the pedal and I think you literally fixed my back for the day. Like that's how much pressure at that speed. Normally EVs don't have that kind of stuff. So let's listen to this.
Oh my God, the classy wheel. Yeah, so it's got the yoke steering wheel.
How do you feel about that so far, the yoke steering?
Well, there's no turn signal stock. So you turn signals with these two buttons here. So that takes the most getting used to, where there's like a bump here between them. So you just sort of feel, and it's like, okay, left is down here, right is up here.
Wow. I mean, yeah, honestly, why would you want a different car at that price range?
These are cooled seats, so I think you're getting a bit of...
Nice. This is my first cooled seats, Brian.
Yeah.
And I might add, very nice. I'm doing things outside and my butt couldn't be more dry. You know, they complain, in the past they've complained about the interior being up to luxury style, but this one, they seem to up their game a bit. Is that fair?
Yeah, this is the refreshed version. So they refreshed this like a year ago or so.
Did you get full self-driving with it?
No, I just went with the enhanced auto pack.
Okay. Which is an extra fee.
It's an extra fee, but I can always get the full self-driving if they are.
If all of it. So just before they solve it so that it's not too expensive.
But it's got a thing where it automatically puts you into gear.
Oh.
It detects, it looks through the cameras. Now, this is going to be tricky because, but it should choose a direction. No, there we go. So it's already chosen drive for me. So it knows.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Okay. Okay. See, I'm not good with exhibition rides, and that was worse than an exhibition ride. But you're not going to lose consciousness, are you? You're doing okay?
It's okay. The autopilot will kick in.
Yeah, hopefully before we get a treat.
I feel like you need to be communicating with Scotty down in it.
Oh,
it's a little bit frightening when we do that. It's in my other car, it's not scary. In this one, it's scary. A little bit frightening.
You've talked in out of owning a Tesla or whatever. It's like,
well, you can just not do that. You can just not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I told you my Uncle Ralph, who was like 85 or 90 at the time, he got a ride in the Tesla and they accelerated and he momentarily lost his eyesight.
See, that's going to be me in a couple of years. I'm not far away from that.
And even when you're going fast, so like we're already going 90, then you...
Jesus! Christ almighty God! I think you fixed my back. So we were going 90 kilometers an hour, and it's still got a shitload of shit left to shit out, if I may. So if you want to pass someone, you literally just think about it and you're done. I mean, they won't even see you.
You were traveling 56 miles an hour and just tapped the pedal and literally threw my back into alignment for the rest of the day. I was thinking I got to see you once a week in Brian's portable chiropractic service.
And, I was thinking about it after that ride. It really, the only time you ever use, or certainly I'm going to use that acceleration, is when you're showing the car to somebody. That's the only time you need that.
Yeah, but years from now, you could be showing it to somebody for the first time and still just... it wows the hell out of them. I mean, it obviously makes an impression. And of course, it's amplified by the fact that you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
If something happens that you move suddenly, unless the ground falls out from underneath you on a plank above Manhattan, there's no sound. You expect a sound to be part of the acceleration. And I think Aiden, my son, calculated it to be what, 1.7 G or something. 1.7
or 1.8 Gs, yeah.
Which is like falling off a building, which is pretty much what it feels like. So it's it's a vehicle that is like too much for me. It's just like I don't belong looking at this. I don't belong driving in this. I'm not a part of this. Why? It's like going into a 6-star hotel somewhere and realizing that you don't belong.
Yeah.
I mean,
And this is just the regular version. This is not the Plaid. So
this
the
is not the
Plaid
Plaid. No,
the
it
Plaid
gets
would
worse
be
than
even
this.
faster.
So I priced out your configuration. I noticed you got wheels that you didn't want. You said that last week. That's $5,000 plus more. I mean, that's okay. Let's put that in James terms. It's half my Leaf. And then you paid a $10,000 new luxury tax to Trudeau. That's my entire Leaf.
Yeah,
Leaf
that's
terms.
true. When you buy an expensive car, you pay a luxury tax. So that's the first time I've ever done that. But I think that's appropriate. I think that's fair.
Okay. No complaints from the ultra left rich. That's good. I haven't heard a lot of complaints from people. I mean, if you can afford it, you can afford it, I guess. But so you're getting the opposite of an EV rebate. You're getting a luxury tax added on. So,
yeah.
I have a negative opinion of Tesla because of Musk. Like when you see the audio goes to 11, like there's little marks of Elon all over it, and Elon is a troll and doing some bad things. And I just feel like this personality is embedded in the vehicle, and I don't know. It's a bit of a negative, but I don't see a better car that one could buy in that price range. I don't think. I mean, charging network aside, it's quite the car for the money.
Yeah, the problem is that it's anything else would be unfortunately a step down, a lower choice. So yeah, it's unfortunate that Musk has this personality and this reputation that a lot of people find repugnant because they make the best cars.
Well, maybe one day he will step aside and start his Mars program or something, but or be pushed aside perhaps if it gets really bad. But Ultra Red, I wish I could have, shared this with, you have to bring it to the next EV gathering locally here, because it is so astonishing. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to see it. Maybe some people are going to want to see it before they order it as well. If you're listening here locally and you're thinking about a Tesla, the Ultra Red is just effing spectacular. It's just unbelievable. It's not any red that you can describe and compare. It's just in a class all its own. It just looks really good with the black accents and just a spectacular car. The glass roof is quite dark as well. Anything else you want to say about your new car? I mean, you must be enjoying it.
Yeah, no complaints so far. The one weird thing is that it comes with a front license plate holder, which we don't require in our province. We don't need a front license plate, and the cars always look better usually without the front license plate. But they told me when I picked it up that they all come that way and they have to deliver them that way because the crash testing was done with the plate holder on. So they're just simply not allowed to sell it to you without the plate holder. So I had to borrow some fishing line from James, and it's glued on, basically taped on with this super glue. And so you use fishing line to sort of saw off the connection to it.
How did that go?
No, I haven't done it yet. I haven't had time.
Seems like a scary thing to do with a car in that price range.
Yeah, I certainly would prefer not to do it, but I watched some YouTube videos and I think it's fine. You just keep the fishing line
away
towards you rather than towards the car, and it should be fine.
And then what are you left with? A little glue mark or?
Yeah, you might have to use some Goo Gone to sort of get the rest of the glue off of there.
Okay, Glue Gone on a Tesla. Brian, you have in the script that your solar panels are coming off for a roof repair. That sent chills down my spine. I thought there was a repair on the solar panels. Was actually a repair on the roof?
On the roof, yeah. So normally our show is completely solar powered because we record in the middle of the day, and James has solar panels. I have solar panels. But they've been shut off for about a week now. We had to take the panels off to finally fix our roof leaks. I'm spending my retirement basically fixing up the house. Yeah. And so I don't know, you probably won't be able to hear it, but there's workers on the roof right now doing reshingling on one side. It's an L-shaped roof, so we're redoing the one side. So the solar panels had to come off. So we've been not producing any solar power for the last week or so, which is, it just kills me to miss all of that power in the middle of summer, but there was kind of no other way to do it. But they're finishing the shingles probably tomorrow morning, and then the panels can go on, as soon as we can get the electrician back.
So you just hired an electrician to do this?
Yeah. We coordinated with the roofers and an electrician to take the panels off.
Well, does an electrician know what to do? Are they certified in solar? I mean, it's a different field in a way.
Yeah, and the company that put our solar on is no longer in business. So we just had to find an electrician with solar experience. So they're going to put everything back once we're done.
Did you think about just calling another solar company?
Yeah, it wasn't too hard. We had somebody kind of helping us coordinate, and they knew somebody. So it all worked out.
Okay.
I mean, assuming they go back on and they still work. So
sticking with sound clips recorded on my phone, we were having a post-meal discussion the other day, and we get we're passionate people, the Whittinghams here. Passionate. I'd like to think so anyway. My son, he doesn't realize it, but he has some of my passion. And he'll never admit that. He's probably listening right now. Well, there's a lot of things he won't admit that he's inherited from me, and some that he does and is mad about. Anyway, we were talking about the podcast, and I said, well, I have doubts about the Cybertruck, but Brian is pretty bullish on it. And he said he had some thoughts. He said, you tell Brian. And then he went on, and I said, well, no, tell him yourself. I'll get out my phone. So here we go. A young person, a 19-year-old, and we have old people on the show all the time, middle-aged, or well, you say we're not beyond. You say we're beyond middle-aged now. That's not good. Let's call ourselves middle-aged. We're still somewhere in the middle. I could live to 106 or whatever it is. So yeah, this is my son Aiden.
No one who has ever bought a truck before will buy a Cybertruck.
Why?
Because they're not dorks.
Do you think it's dorky to drive a Cybertruck?
Yeah.
Don't they look macho?
I mean, sure, they look cool, but the people who will be buying them will be the tech bros who think that they're hicks. I'm not wrong. Yeah.
What happens if the specs outdo all other trucks?
They still won't buy. They're barely getting around to electric Ford F-150s.
What if it's amphibious?
Amphibious. Whoa. They're gonna go across Last Mountain Lake on a Cybertruck. Yeah, then they're not gonna trust that. I don't even know if they like Tesla on the first. The demographic that buys trucks is already very conservative and very distrustful of electric vehicles in the first place. They're very pessimistic, and sure, theoretically they could get one over, but they're not going to get one over to some dorky Mars-looking jerk craft made by ultimate dorky tech bro Elon Musk. That's it.
My show's only 60 minutes. Okay.
Yeah. So he's very in touch with Reddit and young men and what they're thinking, and he's kind of disturbed by how they're thinking, but that's what he thinks.
Yeah, I don't think he's not wrong, but the choice for electric pickup trucks is not that big. A lot of the people who've made reservations are not traditional truck buyers. They're EV people. I put down a reservation. I've never owned a truck before. Not sure if I'm actually going to buy one, but it's going to take them a few years. Like they're going to make maybe 100,000 of them next year. That's going to be easy to sell. Maybe they'll make a few 100,000 the year after that. That's going to be easy to sell. Maybe after that, there's an issue. But there was a story this week. Tesla is now outselling Toyota in California. And they're doing that with basically two models, the 3 and the Y. So they're already outselling Toyota in California. You add the Cybertruck to that puts them even further up. And, so it doesn't have to be the world's best-selling pickup truck. But I do suspect it will be in about, 2 or 3 years.
Well, 3/4 of our listeners are located in the United States and Canada. And here, for the 25% who don't understand the whole truck thing, the Ford F-150 is the best-selling vehicle, period. Not the best-selling truck, the best-selling vehicle, period. And it's been like that. We live in an agri-centric prairie city surrounded by agriculture. We exist here probably because of agriculture. I mean, when we started to exist. So people like their trucks, and they're all over the place. I mean, usually they modify their mufflers to sound more masculine, which tells me they're not using them for work, that it's more about their self-image.
Well, yeah, that's always been one of the weird things about them. I mean, back to when really SUVs started to take off 20 years ago is that, people have not been using their trucks for work and they haven't been using their SUVs to go off-roading. So in many ways, it doesn't really matter what the Cybertruck can do. But in terms of the metrics of a pickup truck, like they're always marketed in terms of toughness and power and strength and everything. And the Cybertruck has all of that. So yeah, the traditional conservative truck buyer may not buy one, but they're certainly going to hit all of the notes that the truck buyers claim to be looking for. Like that kind of toughness is always what the truck buyer is looking for. And it's got all that. And there's like around 1.8 million reservation holders. So, they're going to be fine for years to come.
Years to come, and it'll be years before we know what the broad appeal actually is. It's going to take some time. Now, it does have a bit of a militaristic look to it, depending on how you look at it. They call it the Cybertruck, but really it's pretty brutal and stark with its angular lines. And, you wrap that in a camo wrap for cars, like they're putting on different wraps. So we have yet to see just how strong the appeal will be when they finalize the truck and finalize if there's any different colors or if they will actually provide it with a wrap. My guess is they probably won't, but maybe a first edition or something.
There's always been speculation that they would provide wraps at the factory, but of course that's a huge extra kind of step for them to go through. So I don't know if they'll do that, but the prototypes have been showing up with different wraps. So that's either them having fun or possibly getting ready for, different factory options. I don't know. I mean, Apple offers engraving on their iPhones, which surprised the hell out of me when they first started doing that.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I almost ordered my daughter an iPad with engraving, but it was going to take too long. So it added a couple
takes
weeks.
extra time.
So that would have been nice because, well, she loses things. Well, Brian, as you know, after we sign off on this episode, minutes from now, I'm going to be going on vacation. I'm struggling with it. This is a vacation of, 1,700 kilometers each way from here to the west coast of Canada. And I have not made an EV road trip before. I have tilted my own opinion towards taking the EV. And you know what did that? Because we have a SUV for towing a camper, which we haven't done in a couple of years due to my health. But that SUV sits parked and we've taken it to your lake. Every time we go there, we throw kayaks and bikes on it. And, the kitchen sink and everything else in the back, believe me, overpacked. And that's great for doing that, but that was only a couple of hours away. So I gassed her up and got it started, and I went and got premium gas. It was 25 cents more a liter. This is $1.60 a liter, and so it's $1.85 a liter. So that was a hard thing. We put in $35 very quickly just to get a test. So we did some tests on the highway and was getting about 10 liters per 100 kilometers at times, 12, 13 at other times. I remember getting like 15.6 when I towed sometimes in third gear. But it depends on, it's a big boxy vehicle. Anyway, my testing ended abruptly when I ran out of the $35 less than 24 hours later. $35 would power my EV for a month.
Yeah.
A month, at least. And it was gone with nothing. And then now you want me to drive to the coast with that kind of, here's the thing. I've gotten used to not paying for transportation, for paying for fuel, because it's practically free at home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing. It's $25, $30 a month or more in the winter because you're charging more and heating it. But wow, I can't I can't do it. That's what's tilting me towards the EV, even though it's tiny.
No, and when we were young, of course, I mean, you wouldn't think anything of just hopping in the car and driving to 8 hours to Calgary because, they had $20 gas each way. Like it was like nothing. But now you have to compare it against like air travel, which you've been, looking into. It's like, oh man, this might be cheaper to fly than to drive, which seems crazy.
In 2012, when we got our first Prius, which was our first new car, it was brand new and we took it to Calgary. And I had a big headwind. I wanted to get there in one tank of gas. And when we got there, we were pretty much empty just outside of Calgary. And I filled it up with Alberta prices, which were cheaper because they're the oil capital of North America, or at least Canada, not including Houston. And it was $28 to get from here to there. $28.
Yeah.
And when I did the same thing coming back, I had 160 kilometers left over because it was going downhill away from the mountains. Yeah. I mean, I'm just not used to it. I haven't been used to it in many years.
No, and I probably said this before. I once made that trip in my Datsun. I had a 1983 Datsun, and I did it on one tank of gas. It had a 60-liter tank, and I did it from Calgary to Regina on exactly one tank, which at the time would have cost, $20 or less maybe.
Yeah. Now, $20 then is more than $20 now, but it's not that much. And,
Sure.
I'm running into the issue of climate change in my vacation because I want to go to Whistler for 1 or 2 days on the way back because we don't want to look at skyscrapers and ocean fronts. We want some nature as well. That is kind of our thing. And Whistler would offer that because it is a ski community, one of the premier ski communities in the world.
Should be good hiking trails and stuff.
I had the pleasure of being there for the world premiere of your film, almost 10 years ago now, like a long time ago. And it was winter, and it was like a Hallmark Christmas card. It was soft snow falling from the sky constantly, and it was just beautiful. And skiing hadn't quite ramped up yet, but the festival was in full swing. But now in the summer, during the 2010 Winter Olympics, that's where they were held. A lot of events were there, the alpine events, and they were having trouble with snow. They had to make a lot of snow, and it was melting, and it was not good then. But now that's been 13 years now. This is we're looking at, the normal high is actually not that high there, but it's going to be a heat wave predicted to be 26 or 80 Fahrenheit, and there's no AC in most of the hotels. And so when I read a review of the hotel and when I book, they say, oh, it was so hot.
Yeah.
It was scorching hot. I don't want that. I don't want to pay hundreds of dollars for a hotel and then not have air conditioning and then not sleep because you have to hit the road the next day or do more activities. So trying to find hotels, and a lot of the hotels are, they're condos somehow. I don't understand this. Maybe somebody can explain this to me who's listening. They're condos that are like a hotel, but somebody owns them. Then you have to book them for at least 2 days, and then they hire a cleaner, but they have a front desk and stuff like that. But then they also have a kitchen because food's expensive in Whistler, and we need to save some money somewhere. So the hotels are going to be a couple $1,000s. We don't have a lot of money. It's amazing that we have enough money to even do this. Normally we don't, and we do this time, but we have to tame down the budget. Even though it's a whirlwind 1-week trip, it would be nice to save $1,000 on gas and just do this. Because I notice, the challenging part is here to Calgary, basically, because there's not a lot of chargers. And if there's a headwind, and there could be, then you start to worry and you start, my son says, don't do it. We don't need the stress. Because we did a trip and I was stressed. But I think I've got it figured out now, Brian, now that I've done all the calculations. And by the way, I'll talk about this later, but I really trust the Chevy Bolt EV range indicator. Like it's rock solid. Mm-hmm. Once you know how to use it, it's really good. And that in itself takes away the range anxiety. But once you get to BC, there's a charger every 40, 50, 60 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I'm not talking about level 2. I'm talking about 50 kilowatt BC hydro chargers and things. Yep. So, I mean, if you hit a headwind, if you hit an incline that you weren't counting on, well, you can just stop. There's no range anxiety. On my last trip, there was one charger between here and the 2-hour destination away from here, and that was it. Yeah. And it hadn't been used much. It just opened. So there's all these chargers now, and I'm learning on PlugShare that they have different ratings. Those actually mean something. Yeah,
and within a couple of years, again, all of this is going to improve. We talk often about how much range do you need in an electric car. And right now, like having more than 400 kilometers is ideal, especially where we live. But, in the future, it's not going to matter that much. There's a lot of charges being built, and eventually they'll be pretty close together. So, it's always annoying to have to stop and charge if you weren't wanting to, but...
And small towns have got to step up. In our province, there was one example of a town possibly rejecting the idea of a charger. But, and that's concerning if that's going to happen for cultural stupid reasons. But we got a letter from Michael. He says, you could just have your son fly back. So this is a pressing issue with our listeners.
Yeah, because you were worried about the time. He only has a limited amount of time.
Yeah, and I don't have a limited amount of money. I don't want to extend the trip. Here's another thing, Michael. He says, it's not environmentally good, but you could take your EV, $150, fly one way to Vancouver. And he sent me the screenshot of what it costs. And the problem is I'm having some health issues that I need him to drive.
Right.
My doctors asked me not to drive on the highway for very long because of my consciousnness issue. So
yeah, I'm surprised you stay awake during the podcast.
I barely make it through the show. As you know, I tend to tail off towards the end. So I need a sucker there to do the driving. I don't think he realizes that. Yeah. So that's one thing. And I do appreciate your letter, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. Drop us a note on anything. On Brian's car, on his luxury tax. You hate the luxury tax. You think it's stupid. Should be dropped on EVs. Whatever you have on your mind. But if I had a better car, the big hit against the Bolt is it's a bit small.
Yeah.
It's big in some ways, but it's pretty small. Like we're trying to figure out, well, we would have to do unprecedented packing and put like 2 suitcases in the back. And a human being can do that.
Yeah.
People backpack through Europe for months. Why can't we go on a 1-week trip with a couple of suitcases, which should be able to be done?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But if I took the SUV, I might take a bike. I might actually take my full-size electric bike and take it apart. Like take off the pedals, take off the front wheel, turn the handlebar sideways so it's in line with the rest of the bike, and just sort of pack it up against the back seat of the cargo compartment. And then, take it out. Just so I don't have to bring it into a hotel every night. Like I'll cover it with a blanket or something if we do that. Also, by the way, 7-Eleven chargers, this is breaking news, are being in Canada, in BC. They're starting to come on. The PlugShare app is being under construction. As we talked about that before, we didn't know if they were coming to Canada, and they are. So that's lovely, especially if they work. I actually signed up. I signed up to one of the apps, which is at a competing chain, fast food chain, and you get it for free if you sign up to their loyalty program. So, but then, of course, those are the number one chargers taken right now. But fast charging for free it's a shared fast charger with a battery, by the way. I forget the name of them off the top of my head, but they use like a Tesla Powerwall. And then once that battery's dead, you may not get the 50 kilowatts between two chargers, but they're trying to do that because the grid connection is that solid in that one example.
And you can get a Slurpee while you're at it, which is great because it's insanely hot, if I can segue to our first story here, which comes from Iran, which has declared a public holiday over their unprecedented heat wave risk. And of course, Iran is a country where it gets hot. They're used to hot temperatures, but this is getting so ridiculous that they're having a 2-day holiday. This is August 2nd and 3rd. We're recording this on August 1st. So the next 2 days are a holiday in Iran because it has soared up to 50 Celsius, 122 Fahrenheit. And so they've done this before in kind of different areas and smaller parts of the country in different cities, but this is the first time they've done it nationwide. And it's just because it is just kind of insanely hot. This is not good. They've been having a drought for years as well, which has caused them problems before. So this is climate change. I mean, I guess 2 days off work if you got air conditioning at home and you don't die from the heat.
I don't know how they do it, Brian, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, this is what is so sad about this whole thing, because we know no matter what we do, it's going to get worse. I mean, there's been a new study out that if we decarbonize today, that it wouldn't keep getting worse that long. It was less than expected. Mm-hmm. But I mean, our lifetime, our kids' lifetime, it's going to keep getting worse, even if we do the right thing and meet the challenges. I never expected 20 years ago to be experiencing climate change in 2020 and 2023. I didn't. No one did. Yeah.
The climate has already changed. Here in Canada, like I used to live in Toronto. You lived in Toronto for a brief time. It gets really, really hot there, especially in the summer, because you get some fairly high humidity. And so I do remember being in Toronto once when the humidex, like it was 40, 42 Celsius. And with the humidex, they were calling it 50. And, I went out for a walk just to see what it was like and not very pleasant. But it reminded me of a story. I was in Toronto. You were living there for a while. Then you moved back to Regina. And then you asked Nicole Wishar, our friend Nicole, to pick up some of your stuff that you had stored. She had a truck. We were going to move it somewhere or ship it or something. And the day we were set to do it, it was like 40 degrees Celsius. And she phoned me and said, let's just skip a day. This there's no need to do this today. It's going to be a bit cooler tomorrow. So we decided not to kill ourselves to move your stuff. And we waited an extra day and didn't die.
I bet Nicole has no idea she's on our podcast this week.
I'm sure she doesn't listen.
She's the only person in Toronto who owned a pickup truck because she was from Saskatchewan. It was driving down the street with her, people would look because you wouldn't see any other pickup trucks in Toronto. I mean, it's like, seeing one in Manhattan. They're probably pretty rare unless they're a business. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's a bit. I remember going for a walk with you and your partner. You walked over to my place and we went out on a hot day. Yeah. I had a pretty good window air conditioner for my bachelor suite, and I was on the ground floor. But as soon as you open up the door to the hallway, it hits you like soup.
Yeah.
Like it just hits you. And it's just unlike anything I've experienced. And people live in this stuff. I don't know how they do it without air conditioning. I mean, they get used to it a little bit, but not that much.
I remember meeting someone from Mexico and saying, oh, well, you must be used to this heat living in Mexico. And they said, oh, no, it doesn't get hot like this because they don't have the same humidity.
I mean, Mexico City is dry and at a high elevation. And you assume that everywhere in Mexico is hot. I mean, I was at the Mexican border a few years ago and it was, I don't know, it was 46 or something. Like it was just real, but it was a dry heat.
Yeah.
Not that helps, but I actually think it's worse because when I was at Death Valley at 50 Celsius, 122 Fahrenheit, which they're getting almost that in Phoenix, it's a dry heat, but it also feels like an air dryer, like it burns your skin. I wondered if maybe moisture would kill you, but your skin wouldn't dry out like you're by a furnace.
The dryness is not good either.
We're going to require air conditioning. Some people say that's going to create more energy demand with climate change. And then we're going to have to, but we have the technology. We have what it takes to offset that economically with just even more wind, solar, and battery and water and whatever else we can whip up in the meantime very soon.
You need a vacation, James.
I need a vacation. I need one. And I'm going into a place that has 200 uncontrolled wildfires in the beautiful forests of British Columbia. And one question I got, Brian, from my family several times is, what if we're changed by wildfire activity? Will we have enough range? The answer is yes.
Yeah, okay.
Unless everyone's fleeing at the same time, maybe the chargers are full. I don't know.
Well, I know
gas stations get full too, and then the gas stations run out. They're not going to run out of the hydro, I hope.
I suggested to you to maybe take the southern route, Highway 3, and that goes through Osoyoos. And Osoyoos
that was a good suggestion, Brian.
Been surrounded by wildfires and evacuations.
It looks like a hellscape, and you wanted me to go there. My son is fascinated by Osoyoos because it has a very desert climate, the warmest, driest climate in Canada, and he's kind of interested in that stuff. So, but not this year. And also, I mean, places like Kamloops and Kelowna, where we will be overnighting, because that's kind of the halfway point between Calgary and the coast, it's frequently threatened by fires. And we've got a heat wave starting now that's even prolonging a longer heat wave from before and a drought. So it could be an interesting vacation one way or the other, regardless of what I take to get there. And if I do take the electric car, check out Twitter or Threads, our account, Clean Energy Pod. I'll post some things there just that I'm doing it. One of the big news stories of the week was this charging consortium from 7 big automakers. That sort of came as a surprise. They're trying to be the competition to the Tesla network in a way and not be run by them, I guess. So BMW Group, GM, Honda, which is surprising, like that's a Japanese company, and Hyundai will be a part of this too. They haven't talked much, and Kia with their sister company, Mercedes-Benz Group, Stellantis, notably missing is Ford and Toyota, of course, and Nissan. But what do you think so far about this?
Yeah, I think announcements like this are always good, and it comes a lot from the Inflation Reduction Act. There's subsidies for this available. Right now, Tesla has, a monopoly almost on charging network. They're just so far ahead. They started building theirs 10 years ago. So it makes sense for the other automakers to team up and trying to build something of a similar size. Keeping in mind, if they start now, it'll still take them 10 years at least to catch up. This is the kind of lead that Tesla has. But I think it's an encouraging sign. I mean, it just, I don't know, the sheer number of announcements that we can't talk about on the show because there's just so many of them. And they're as a result of the Inflation Reduction Act. There's just basically all kinds of stimulus for building solar panel plants, for building battery plants, and offshore wind we're going to talk about. It's really doing its job, the Inflation Reduction Act, of stimulating this kind of activity. Now, these companies should probably get together and do it anyway, even without a subsidy, because the world is going electric. But, maybe this was the kick they needed to get them going.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a bad thing, and they should have some brand control because Tesla Network is the Tesla brand. And I think how things are shaping up, by 2030, Tesla could have, barring any stupid decisions by the CEO burying the company and doing something dumb, I think that it seems like the big automakers are behind on EVs. And I think what's going to happen, I've said this a couple of weeks ago, is that China is going to move in because they're ready to go, BYD and others. And they're going to get a foothold here because of the lack of go power than organization with the big automakers. Like GM said that they've got a battery bottleneck, and Ford said that. And we'll see how it pans out if they correct this in the next year. But it could be quite interesting to see what happens. And if Tesla has the only charging network, they could be very much dominating sales with five vehicles by then. It's time for, what do you think?
What do you think?
This is where I ask Brian what he thinks about things. Well, guess what? I'm not going to ask Brian this week.
What?
I used the opportunity to ask the Electrek editor-in-chief and publisher.
Electrek.com, one of the premier websites for clean energy news.
So I asked Seth Winthrop and Fred Lambert, the electric car guy and editor, what they thought of this move on their stream.
I mean, I would assume that was in the works too before the wave of NACS. So maybe with the announcement this week, they just they had in NACS, but they are still internally discussing maybe you're right. And by the end of it, when this thing actually starts being deployed, it's going to be just NACS. Anyway, it's good news. It's more charging station. Just wish it would have happened sooner because
why?
You literally have 7 giant company partnering together to build something Tesla as right now. Maybe they don't have 30,000 chargers in North America, but pretty close. They're not that far off, and they started doing it 10 years ago. So they have a 10-year lead on also these 7 combined. It's
also in the past, joint ventures don't seem to work terribly well. Everybody's got committees, and so I hope what they do is spin off a company and give them some autonomy. I guess a little bit like Electrify America by Volkswagen. I also thought it was interesting. Volkswagen's obviously not part of it because they have Electrify America, but Ford's not part of it either.
Yeah, Ford's not part of it. That was an interesting one.
See, I gave you a week off from what do you think, Mike?
Nice.
Doing that. I hear some a little bit of cynicism there about it. Because Electrify America is a terrible network in the States. There's Electrify Canada that I've encountered, and I have the app. I have all the apps, and they seem to be working for the most part fairly well here. I mean, there's a lot of the other ones, the non-Electrify Canada ones, that seem to be working worse. So we'll see.
The hardware is really key. The Tesla clearly figured out the hardware needed for charging and the software as well. So perhaps with this consortium, they can get together and, build a new charger. Because the other thing about them with these other chargers is they tend to be more expensive than the Tesla chargers, because they not only figured out what was a good charger, but they figured out how to make them cheaply. So the Tesla chargers go in at kind of half the price of the other chargers. So presumably they're going to take a more of a Tesla approach and try and mass produce these things and make them cheaper.
This is the Clean Energy Show with Brian Stockton and James Whittingham.
Okay, so this story, speaking of Electrek, this is a story from Electrek. The United States has announced 4 to 8 gigawatts of new offshore wind areas in the Atlantic Ocean. So the U.S. is going to go big for offshore wind, and this is part of the Inflation Reduction Act as well. So this is off the coasts of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. And it's enough for, 4 to 8 gigawatts of offshore wind. This is not where it's going to stop either. The goal for the U.S. is 30 gigawatts by 2030. So here we are, 2023. Is that what year this is?
I believe so. Let me check my watch. Yep.
So 7 years to get to 30 gigawatts. This is the first 4 to 8. Again, there's just so many announcements happening. There's too many to even cover on the show, but this seemed like an important one. To get that 30 gigawatts by 2030, this is where we got to start moving on this, and it looks like it is moving. Okay, and then a much smaller story here. This is from Chicago. This is from the website Energy News Network. This is much smaller scale. This is only a $15 million commitment, but I just thought I'd mention it because I thought it was interesting. And we've been talking on the show about how, poor people are more likely to suffer the effects of climate change. In BC, we talked about a program to hand out literally free air conditioners to people in BC because they don't want people to die again if there's another heat wave. So this is a program in Chicago where they're committing $15 million to help lower income residents decarbonize their buildings. So these are grants for electric stoves, heat pumps, and other energy efficiency measures, and it's for low-income people. It's specifically 1 to 4 unit residential buildings. It is part of the plan for the city of Chicago to meet their 2022 climate action plan. That means to reduce their citywide emissions by 62% by 2040. That could still be going faster. But this is a really great program. It's enough for only 200 to 350 households. But these appliances or, getting rid of gas cooktops, it's going to be at absolutely no cost to the people in the units. So much like the free air conditioners in BC.
What they need to do in BC is give free air conditioners to the hotels in Whistler so I can stay there during the summer.
Yeah, because Whistler's noted for all of its low-income residents.
Yeah, that's for sure. Every place has a fireplace, but not a, there's a bike park there. There's one of the best bike parks in the world for going. You can take a bike lift up the mountain, and then you go down the mountain if you have some flexible bones and you're 19 years old, and my son wants to do it. That's great. Whistler's great. Also, great new art gallery there. We visited. It's absolutely beautiful. I would recommend that. And then further on the charging thing, so that new network we were talking about, so the automakers getting together, it's possible that could have CCS as well as the Tesla connector. That's not really sure, but probably by the time they start to build these things, like the Electrek people said, that it'll probably just be NACS because we've decided they have to do both. Biden's making them do both. At least for now. I guess
that's possible, but things could change. But we pretty much decided here on the Clean Energy Show that the NACS connector is going to be the default. But another story from Electrek is that this is the first look finally at the actual mega charger from Tesla. So the Tesla Semi is going to need a different, more like robust charging connector than the standard Tesla connector. But we've never actually seen it until recently. So it's big. It's definitely a lot bigger than the NACS connector because it's got to do a lot more electricity to get these semi-trucks charged. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention it. It's probably a similar size to the CCS connector, which we make fun of because it's just too large. It's just too big. But in this case, you kind of need a physically larger connector. And I imagine they made it as small as they could. But it's, if you're interested, just Google, Tesla Mega Charger connector if you want to look at pictures of this.
Yeah, it's pretty big and hopefully impressive. It's time for the X of the Week. Used to be the tweet of the week, but jackass changed the name of the company because he likes the letter X. He also likes the number 69. He likes a lot of things. Child man. This is from Hannah Ritchie. A common confusion is that to decarbonize, the world will need to produce the equivalent of coal, oil, and gas in the form of low-carbon energy, and that's not true. Most fossil fuel produced gets wasted. In the U.S., 1/3 of fossil fuels gets turned into useful services. The rest, as you know, when we compare ICE vehicles and EVs, is wasted as heat. Gas vehicles, 20 to 30% efficient at best.
Yep.
EVs up around 90%. So
yep.
Most of that gets heat.
It's just like an old incandescent light bulb where it might be taking 100 watts to power, but something like 90% of that is wasted as heat. Only 10% of that is used to make light, which is why we're busy switching to LED bulbs. They're just way more efficient. And it's still kind of stark. It's still kind of staggering. Only 1/3 in the U.S. turns into useful energy and 2/3 wasted as heat in the fossil fuel system. It's just remarkable.
So to replace it, you need to replace it by 1/3, not 1-to-1. Last week I was talking about my brother-in-law being at a campground just outside the city. Well, when we were there, it's a beautiful, quiet, treed little campground in the middle of the prairies, and a semi pulled in because a guy has a semi-tractor, pulling a camper, which is the ultimate dream for my brother-in-law because they're more fuel efficient apparently than his diesel truck. But I don't know if this was a private out-of-use vehicle, but I almost died from the fumes because you're not usually that close to a semi. And if you think about all these semis in the world traveling around and going by neighborhoods in a more subtle form of that exhaust, it's just disgusting and dangerous, and the health effects are proven to be bad for people who live near freeways and highways.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about on the show, like the port in LA is one of the places that is trying to electrify all of their vehicles around the port because they've got all these diesel vehicles running around the port, and that pollution is drifting away, and everybody living nearby has to breathe it.
It's time for the lightning round.
The Lightning Round is a fast-paced look at the latest headlines in climate, clean energy, and transportation.
Oh, baby! Tesla plans 9 electric semi-truck charging stations between California and Texas. Why is that, Brian? Why California and Texas?
Well, that's where Tesla is mainly located in the U.S., is factories in California, factories in Texas. So it makes sense that they would work on that route first. Plus, I think that's probably a heavily trafficked route, generally speaking, in the U.S. But
for shipping, yeah.
Yeah, this it really points out like this mega charger network for the electric semis is really just starting. I mean, we just saw only recently a picture of what the connector looks like. So there's still lots of work to go with this mega charger network and making electric semis a reality. It's all doable. It's all possible. But these are still early days.
Do you remember the lowly MX-30 from Mazda? Their low-range electric car in a long-range EV world that was laughed at, mocked by even us. They've killed it off in the United States after selling, get this, 66 cars.
Yeah, that's not very many.
If you have one of them, you're going to have a very unique vehicle.
That's a collector's item right there.
And good luck getting it fixed or parts for it because there's 66 of them. Subaru 3-row electric SUV is going to be built in the United States in a few years when they make a factory. And who's going to make the factory? Toyota. So we really don't know what Toyota's doing. They say they're doing these things. We have to wait. And Brian, they're going to be behind. They're going to be way behind. Kia pauses EV9 reservations in Canada as the demand outpaces low supply.
Yeah. So, Kia EV9 seems like a great vehicle, a new electric vehicle from Kia, but as is often the problem, it seems like they're probably not making enough of them.
Ooh, it's a CS Fast Fact. New York City dominates when it comes to carrying riders on its subway system, but outside of New York City, the 3 top ridership metro systems in the U.S. and Canada are, this is number 2 and 3 and 4, Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver.
Wow.
Surprised.
I didn't know that.
So yeah. We're doing pretty well in Canada, all things considered, when it comes to ridership.
No, and in fact, in Montreal, they just opened up a big new transit line. It sounds like it's kind of like the equivalent of the Elizabeth line in London that I was talking about, but a big new transit line just opened a couple of days ago in Montreal. It's called the REM, and greatly expands. It looks like it's all above ground, light rail, I think, kind of like the SkyTrain in Vancouver. But the reviews so far are excellent. This is going to be a huge boon to transit in Montreal.
They had some hiccups getting it off the ground because they had a free weekend and everyone showed up to use it. Scores of people showed up and yeah, they had some hiccups, but it's working out now, I think. So Chevy has revealed the 2024 EV price for the Blazer EV version, and it's a little pricey, but they haven't got the base model out yet. I'm waiting to see what the Equinox, their cheapest vehicle, while we wait for a new Bolt on the Ultium platform, will be, to see if I can upgrade to that. Man, if I had that. I mean, there's not a lot of chargers that can charge faster than 50. I have a lot less. 50 kilowatt chargers should be outlawed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're useful as a backup.
Mm-hmm.
Put them in grocery stores and shopping malls and things like that. But on the highway, let's get some better ones.
Yeah, well, as we discussed last week, in the EU, they are making laws basically to ensure that along the major highway routes that there are fast chargers of the 300-400 kilowatt variety.
Found this interesting. Waymo is killing off their autonomous trucking program to focus on near-term commercial success. So I guess they think commercial trucking without a driver is a ways off. So that's kind of news, I think. Burning Man may start banning electric bikes, Brian. Riders are ignoring the 5 mile per hour speed limit too often, and they've gotten a lot of negative feedback with that issue. Are you hitting Burning Man this year?
No, I've never been to Burning Man, but yeah, sometimes people do go too fast on their electric bikes. They do it around town here on our bike paths, and it's always a little bit annoying to see somebody on. They're almost like motorcycles, the big fat tire electric bikes, and people are often going too fast, and it does seem kind of dangerous. So maybe stick to the roads if you've got a fast electric bike.
You should go to Burning Man. There's probably a lot of dudes there with Teslas and ultra red, rich guys with podcasts, just showing up and just doing the burn. Up to 30% of all U.S. flights on average may be subject to weight restrictions during periods of high heat by mid-century. 30% of flights will not be able to take off due to physics, because the hotter the air, the thinner the air, the less atoms there is to push to have the whole force on the wings. And barring a miraculous technological breakthrough, the aerospace industry has no solution to overcome the harsh laws of physics. This according to Bloomberg. And finally this week, before vacation, the Victorian government in Australia announced on Friday that gas connections in new homes will be banned next year.
Oil ban.
Always like to see gas and oil banned, and that is a pretty big populated area. And with that, I'm on vacation. Woohoo! Please take the time to contact us, although I won't read it. I'll be struggling. Vacation shouldn't be a struggle, and yet they are. Clean Energy Show, all one word, @gmail.com. That's the best way. But there's a million other ways, because we're on social media as Clean Energy Pod. There's other ways in the show notes. You can donate to the show. You can help our show by spreading word on social media. Our YouTube channel's there, but we're not going to be on it this week because I'm on vacation as of now. So if you're one of the people who's disgruntled by not watching our YouTube show, came to find the audio, hello. Check out the Clean Energy Store. Link is in your show notes. Hats are coming again soon. If you're new to the show, remember to subscribe on your podcast app, because that's how you get new episodes delivered every week. And I will have lots of stories about whatever I do. And please forgive us for taking a couple weeks off, but it is the middle of summer. So whatever you're doing, have a good time, and we'll see you in 2.
Yeah, see you in 2 weeks.